This is Grill, a Doors Rush variant concept straight from the fiery pits of the underworld. As you all probably know by now, Doors is considering adding more Rush variants to the game, entities that function like Ambush and Blitz, that type of deal. And I've decided to toss my hat into the ring yet again and create another flaming concept for what one could potentially look and function like. This one is actually pretty cool, as instead of being completely original, it's actually based on another feature from the game, that being Fire Damp. You know, the thing that explodes if you use a lighter in its presence. Now, I'll get into more how all that explosion stuff ties into this entity later, but just as a quick rundown, in this video, I'll be explaining the appearance and functionalities of this new entity concept. So, with all of that being said, let's begin. Alright, so this is Grill. They are a variant of Rush that is heavily intertwined with the concept of fire damp gas, which is a dangerous substance periodically found throughout the mines that suffocates players who stay in it for too long, and most notably completely explodes anyone who ignites a lighter in its presence. This connection to fire damp is heavily referenced in Grill's design, and although at first it may seem a little confusing, I'm going to explain it to you, so hopefully that clears up any confusion. Grill's name and rough design were created by a friend of mine by the name of Frontsides, a person who has been a reoccurring appearance on this channel for making several other Rush variation concepts. In fact, their head shape is actually inspired by some strange unnamed thingy Frontsides saw in a car. This is unrelated, but if anyone knows the name of this car part, let me know in the comments. Anyways, the entity's face quite obviously is missing a lower set of teeth, yet their razor-sharp upper teeth more than make up for it with their horrifying nature. They have a more pink and red skin tone too to somewhat mimic the appearance of fire damp, but the real connection to the dangerous gas is represented via their particle effects. Many Rush variants, such as Blitz and even just default Rush, have a dark misty fog surrounding their face, and Grill is no exception to that. However, what's unique is that this fog is actually fire damp gas. Wherever the entity goes, a large cloud of fire damp gas follows, and not only that, but jets of the toxic chemical shoot out of their entire body, so nowhere is safe from their gaseous influence. This will actually play into their functionality, but more on that a little later. Now, just fire damp gas itself is pretty boring, so we need to spice it up by turning up the heat, and that is exactly what I've done. Not only does Grill have fire damp gas, but some of it is even ignited on fire. One of the most well-known features of this substance is that it's very flammable, and that is represented by how the entity is quite literally immersed in flames. They look like they're straight from the underworld, so encountering them should be quite terrifying. Now, we all know Frontsides did an amazing job designing this entity, and I did pretty good turning its heat up, but how will they actually function? Well, because Grill is so heavily intertwined with fire damp, their mechanics should be as well. Here's what I'm thinking. Essentially, throughout the mines, or when players play the hotel with fire damp spawning modifiers enabled, Grill would be able to spawn. Yet, unlike most Rush variants who can spawn pretty much anywhere, Grill will only be able to appear in fire damp rooms. That's right, sometimes when you enter a fire damp room, you could feel the ground shake and see the lights flicker, and then you know it's time to hide. This not only makes their appearance for their environment fit, but it also makes fire damp rooms a little more challenging, as they can pretty easily be neutralized just by quickly walking through them. Now, much like with most Rush variants, you initially survive this one by passing via hiding in a locker, but the real challenge comes after they pass. You see, since Grill's body is expelling fire damp everywhere, it's only natural the gas would be present sort of as a byproduct of their appearance, and that is exactly what happens when they pass by. When Grill spawns, players would be unable to move onto the next room, or move back into the previous one. Think of it kind of like how Halt works, where once the room spawning Grill is opened, all players would be teleported to it, and they would be unable to progress or retreat. This actually is because the entity's mechanic actually affects the following rooms, and since they only spawn in fire damp rooms, to prevent players from suffocating, the entity would have to move rather quickly. Anyways, once you hide from Grill and get out of your closet or locker or whatever hiding place you were in, the next 3 to 5 rooms will all be flooded with fire damp. That's right, when this entity comes and goes, you'll be put into a race against the clock, as you must quickly speedrun through the next rooms before dying of suffocation to the fire damp gas. Going back to the Halt analogy, when the entity spawns, the previous room would be permanently locked. So there would be no way of cheesing this race against suffocation to get some extra time of fresh air. You've gotta be quick in order to survive. Now, of course, with a mechanic this complex, there would have to be some balancing changes, so let me go through those. For one, none of the fire damp rooms following Grill's arrival can have any sort of puzzle. I'm not sure if you remember this, but when Floor 2 first released, there was actually a bug where players could be locked into fire damp generator puzzle rooms after escaping Halt. And since it's impossible to go back to Halt's room after escaping it as the door locks behind you, when this happened it would automatically be a death sentence, as there physically isn't enough time to complete the generator puzzle before suffocating. So to prevent a situation like this, all the following fire damp rooms would be easily traversable and wouldn't require players to stop and do some sort of task. Additionally, as I've said, since Grill spawns in a fire damp room, they'd have to be rather quick, as players need time to not only stay alive in that room, but the next ones that follow, as all of them will contain the deadly fire damp gas. Other than those two considerations though, I don't feel like there would be any other issues with this entity. So, to summarize what Grill does in a neat and ordered manner, in some fire damp rooms, players have the chance of encountering the new rush entity concept by the name of Grill. They will move rather quickly, so after seeing the lights flicker, ground shake, and hearing their scream, players should immediately hide. Afterwards, the players are immediately put into a race against the clock, as due to the fire damp that has been expelled from Grill's body, the following rooms which the entity has passed through will now be flooded with the substance. So, players will have to quickly speedrun through them before suffocating, or exploding if they choose to use a lighter for some reason, in order to survive. It also doesn't help that when the entity spawns, the previous room will be permanently locked, and the next room will be temporarily locked, at least until the entity passes, as that way players will have no escape from the wrath of the fire damp gas. All in all, the whole point of Grill is to give it a more intense purpose. So, fire damp is actually useful, as I've always felt it was a rather easily avoidable hazard within the game, and I think me along with Frontsides did a pretty good job of upscaling its difficulty with the introduction of this new rush variant. So, that is basically everything you need to know about Grill, the new fire damp themed rush variation concept for doors. Before I end off this video, I want to give a big thanks to Frontsides for creating the rough model of this entity as well as naming it, as the name Grill actually inspired me to theme it around fire damp, as both seem to be related to flames and fire and all of that hot stuff. I do still wonder though what the car part was that inspired the design of the entity, so if any of you know, please tell me in the comments. I will say though that overall, although I do really like the concept of a fire damp themed entity, I'm not satisfied with how this one turned out, as I am with the other entity concepts that I've created like Hark. So if you have any ideas for how to improve this one, let me know in the comments. Anyways, with all of that being said, thank you all for watching and I hope you enjoyed.